Welcome everyone. Today's class will be part 3 of our the hair section of our cosmetology program. So if you're enrolled in this class, you need to have completed sections 1 and 2. Has everybody done the prerequisites? Okay, so we've done like the basic hairstyles, basic cuts and colors and things like that in the sections 1 and 2. So we're going to get into specialty areas now, and one of the big trends right now is vintage hairstyles, vintage cosmetics, costumes, and things like that. I know some of you are interested in getting into costuming for film and theater, so this will come in very handy. We'll use 2 books in this semester, so I wanted to just take today's session to go over them with you a little bit, see what's inside, what we're going to be covering, and you'll be reading about, and then we'll be practicing them. So these first sessions will just be reading and seeing different examples. We can watch some like film clips occasionally, or look at some photographs that show these different styles. But these books have a lot of good samples to give you an idea. And then in part 2, once we get through that, we'll actually be, we'll have models come in, and we can go into the studio, and you'll be able to practice the cuts and the styling for all of these. So this one is called Vintage Hairstyles, Simple Steps for Retro Hair with a Modern Twist. And this one is called Style Me Vintage, Step-by-Step Techniques for Creating Classic Hairstyles. Now there are several other books that are more advanced on these topics, but we didn't want to start you off at the top difficulty level, so these are good to get your feet wet, so to speak, and start off with some of the basic things that you could do without too much extra specialty techniques or anything like that. So let's look at this one first. Are there any questions before we get started? Oh yes, well I do have a syllabus for the class. You can find that on the website for this class. I know you have all the other online classes are set up on the website, and so this part of it can be done remotely, and of course the in-studio part, of course you'll have to be here in person, but all the reading lessons will be in there, and there will be quizzes each week. There'll be like just a short quiz at the end of the week on what we went over, and then there'll be a midterm and a final, both a written portion and then actually for a final. Besides the written part, you will actually do a full cut styling of one of these designs in either of the books. It may include coloring if you want, but it's not essential. The main thing is getting the cut and the setting, the hair and the rollers, the perm if it's necessitated, and then the makeup, there's the optional makeup component too for extra credit. So let's just get started, basically, just to kind of get you an idea of what we'll be looking at. So this has hairstyle history, tools and tips of the trade, techniques for curly looks, bangs or fringe as it's called in some parts of the world. Hairstyles get the look, all about color, topping it off, mad about makeup. That's just introduction. In the hairstyle history section, I definitely recommend you read this section carefully and review it. It's very important to have a grounding in the differences throughout the decades and how some of the bigger names of the designers and artists, especially if those of you interested in going into like film or stage costuming. So here's the 1910s, a little sample suit there. 1920s, of course, we all know the flapper look is very distinctive styling. There's the 1930s, gets very slim and glamorous. Veronica Lake is mentioned here. Jean Harlow. Then we have the 1940s. Now, a lot of what happened in the 40s was the fabrics, because of the wartime supplies being diminished. A lot of designs came out using less fabric, so you tended to see some slimmer cuts, not quite as full and lavish, and trimmer cuts, fabrics. There's the 1950s. Looks like kind of like an Audrey Hepburn dress, doesn't it? 60s. There you're getting your twiggy look. Oh. What happened to the 70s? I guess this book stops at the 60s. Alright. Oh well. We have other books in our school library. You can look at the beyond the 60s, but I guess because this focuses on vintage, it just doesn't go more recent. Tools and tips of the trade. These are the old-fashioned kind of rollers. You may have used these, or maybe your mom or your grandma. Hairstyles and face shapes. Now, I know you went over this in your beginning makeup class. It's the same principles can apply from what you learned there to hairstyles as well. How to frame the face, different depending on the shape of the face. Different hairstyles will flatter better than others. So here we have the oblong shape, the round, the square. It's not truly a square, but gives you an idea. The triangle, heart shape, and the oval. And then it gives just some basic kind of samples of the way the different hairstyles accent those types of face shapes. Tools, of course, it reviews the hot rollers, curling iron, flat iron, foam rollers, heat protectors, different kinds of clips, hair combs, setting lotion, setting gels, tail combs, brush, styling brush, hair nets, hair pads, hair buns, hairspray, dry shampoo, and other accessories. So now we've gone into the main bulk of the sections. Here is curly hair section. I like the way they've done the photos, very glamorous, old-fashioned style. More on curls. Now you're getting into some techniques on how best ways to use curling irons and flat iron pin curls. How to use rollers. There's so many different kinds of rollers now, and we will review those as well. You have samples of all the different kinds in the lab. Here is a section on bangs or fringe. That is kind of wild. I don't know where that comes from. Finger waves. This is a 1920s style. You'll recognize these very smooth curls. It's typical of that era. So we'll practice this technique as well. Scarlet's curls. This 1930s style is sheer confidence. It's like a pin-up girls of the 1930s glamour. It's curls at the top. Look at that dress. It's pretty. And then how to achieve that look. There's another very classic vintage style. So the rest of this is different looks and then how to achieve them. Gibson tucked. Remember the Gibson girls. French twist. That's a very different sort of French twist than you see nowadays. Like this old-fashioned stewardess uniform with the little white gloves. People would dress up to go on an airplane once upon a time. The beehive look. The Jackie flip. Of course, Jackie O. That's really kind of cute. So as we look through these, keep in mind, mark any favorites that you have, because you will get to choose what look you want to create for your final. So if you see something, take a note, because you might not remember later. It's like, oh, I'd like to try that one. So So this is a section on coloring. And hat trends, which is kind of a neat thing at the back of this book. There's a variety of things we'll look at. They've got hat trends per the decade, 1910s, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. That's interesting. There's different ways to tie scarves. This is called a bird cage, and you see that netting attached to a little hat. I'm sure you've all seen that in the old movies. And there's a little section about makeup in the back as well, which is nice because it goes through each decade and shows what kinds of makeups were popular at the time. 30s, 40s, 50s. Look at that eyebrow. It's interesting what happens to the eyebrow. In the 60s. Look at that cat's eye look. And of course, how heavy the lashes are. False eyelashes seem to be very in vogue right now. The natural look, like of the 70s, and it's kind of given way back to heavier eyeliner. The cat's eye is very big and dark. The eyebrow is very trim, and the false eyelashes are big again, as well as hair extensions. Anyway, here's lips, and this also goes by the decade too. 1910s. The 20s, dark red and reddish brown came into use. 1930s, red lipstick was every woman's accessory. The going look was not pouty, but rather square and oblong. Inspiration came from such style icons as Greta Garbo and Marlene Dietrich. The pale ideal from the 1920s seemed too severe in the already troubled 1930s. Instead, a new sun-kissed beauty ideal came into fashion, adding a golden, sunny shimmer to the reigning superstars. In the 1930s, Helena Rubinstein introduced lipstick with built-in sun protection. I would have thought that came later. Here's the 40s, 50s, and the 60s. And then here's trends of eyebrows, again, each decade, and how things changed over the years. It's very good, as you know, to have a classic eyebrow pencils in your stash. And then we've got blush and how that has changed throughout the decades. And then the use of foundation, powder, blush. Then we have nails, decade by decade. We've got the colors that were in vogue. The 30s were quite bright, as you can see. The 40s introduced a little more muted shades, even got a purple in there. 50s, you got a little bit paler there. Enter green, that's interesting. 60s, you kind of have some mod colors like this yellow, lavender, this green. here's how to do a French style manicure. Or excuse me, this is a half moon manicure. This style enjoyed immense popularity from the 20s through the 40s. It's come back in vogue today. There's a sample, although you can't see it too well. She's pretty. There's a little section even on eyewear, different trends in glasses. So that is this book, and you can get it in the bookstore. We have many copies ordered. Of course, there are reserved copies in the library, but I really suggest you get your own because you'll be referring to it a lot. And of course, you can buy them online too. So this one is Style Me Vintage. Let's take a quick look at that one. This talks about the same kind of things. Waves, curls, 50s, beehives, bouffants. Essential equipment. Reviews different hair equipment for your repertoire, and some of you probably have most of these things from sessions 1 and 2, but it's good to just stock up whenever you see a sale or anything like that. You can also get kits if you haven't got one yet. We have kits in our bookstore with just like all the kind of the basic hair tools you'll need. So if you haven't had a chance to get one of those yet, that's really handy. You can also buy the components individually. Rollers. It's good to have a selection of rollers. So again, we do have a lot in our lab. Of course, you can use. We've got the styles. Marlena Dietrich style. There's Queen. And this is more instructions how to achieve that look. You can see all the hairpins that are used. And here is that Lana Turner? Veronica Lake, of course. It's beautiful young woman, Veronica Lake. But that's Veronica Lake. And that's Wanda Hendricks. I don't think I know her too well. But that's Veronica Lake. Pinup. She was a big pinup girl. The peekaboo. Let's go over the eye. Rita Hayworth, another glamour girl. More how-tos, how to achieve the look. Here we have Betty Grable, famous bathing suit pose from 1942. You can see how the hair is all up on top of the head like that. And there's Lucille Ball looking quite young and glamorous. And here's that, achieving that look today. Patty Page fringe roll. Oh, that's making your bangs kind of curl under like that. There's another rolled fringe. And there's some more. Of course, if you don't know who that is, you're probably very, very young. And of course, Scarlett Johansson wears the look very well. So beautiful. They're both beautiful. Okay. Elvis. You weren't surprised to see a man in here, of course. They're a separate course on men's hairstyles that you can take as an elective as well. This one is on women's, as you know, but it's nice to take a look on how to achieve the Elvis look. Gwen Stefani pulls off that look. A pompadour. Poodle pin. It's cute to the 1950s. Let's see. This looks like Brigitte Bardot. Brigitte Bardot. Talk about glamorous. And Linda Darnell. And then this is Duffy. 2009 Welsh singer. Got the big poof on top. It's called the beehive. The original beehive was super high on top. There's a modern interpretation. Brigitte beehive. This is a little more informal. And here is the bouffant, popular by Jackie Kennedy. It puffs up midway across the crown and over. This was the Mad Men show, which had great period piece clothing and hairstyles. Of course, iconic Jane Fonda. Look at that hair. That's amazing. And Cheryl Cole. I wonder if they had hair extensions at that time or her hair was really that long. Barbarella. The Barbarella, it's called, from that movie, Barbarella. It's fun to see the old movies, so we will take some time, like especially on rainy days when you don't feel like doing anything. We'll watch some clips like from old movies and look at the different hairstyles and how they might work today. So here's a section on extras. We've got scarves. Is that Tippi Hedren? Oh, Grace Kelly. I recognize her. Talk about classic beauties, Grace Kelly. This is Amy Winehouse. '40s headscarf. '40s starlit scarf. That's a tongue twister. This reminds me of Tippi Hedren in The Birds. That's really pretty. That's like a chiffon. It's called a ponytail scarf. It's a really nice look. It's a popular way for girls to brighten up their ponytail in the 50s. Tying a chiffon scarf around the base of your ponytail will also add an extra splash of color to your outfit. Simply wrap a long, thin scarf around the ponytail and tie it in a bow to secure. For an authentic 50s look, try also rolling your fringe under or quiff the front. I like that. How to create padding. Padding, also known as a rat, was historically made by women using their own hair. They would collect this from their hairbrushes, put it into a hairnet or an old stocking, and then use the resulting pad to create extra volume, height, and support for their gravity-defying styles. Padding is particularly useful for beehive hairstyles. And then there's how to create your own if you want to. And then there's just the picture credits in the back, acknowledgements. So that is our second textbook for the course. So I just wanted to give you an idea of what was in these and just get you familiar with it. So we will, as I said, go through both of these books during the semester, and just a reminder, we'll have the quizzes, which will each be worth 10 points, and then the midterm. I think I mentioned a midterm, but we will do a midterm, which would be a cut and styling of your choice. And then the final will be another full cut, styling, coloring, and with the optional makeup as well. But I highly recommend you do the makeup too, to get the most points, if you want to get, all the points you can for your grade. So that's it for today's class. Thank you so much for coming, and I will post my office hours on the website and all my contact information, and yeah, that's it. All right, we'll see you next class. Bye-bye.